Lovely to see you all for this breakout session as part of the International Rare Disease Showcase. If you haven't picked it up by now, I'm Rick, I'm CEO of Beacon, and really pleased to be here and join today in this discussion session. So, as with all sessions, just want to introduce you to our sponsors and say a big thank you to them. Obviously, we've got a wide range of people supporting us today, and in particular for this session, it's worth noting Pulse Infoframe, our gold sponsor, are helping us run the session today to talk all about registries. And with that, I've done my bit, which is exciting, and I'd like to pass over to Dan Louis and Famida Gaudry-Sagar, who's going to tell us all about what are the 5 key ingredients to a rare disease registry, which is a very important and popular topic, and we'll be excited to hear what you say. So Dan, over to you.
Cool, thanks Rick. I'm just going to share my screen with everyone. So what are the 5 key ingredients for a rare disease registry? So before we move on to that, I think it would be good just to give you a quick overview of, my background, the background of Pulse, where I work, and obviously Famida as well, so you can understand why we've been asked today by Beacon to kind of talk through our own view on how these rare disease patient registries should be built. So very quickly, Pulse, we're pioneers and leaders in rare disease and cancer registries. We've built many for different stakeholders, including advocacy, farmers, biotech, academics as well. And our product, the Healthy Platform, is a very robust platform that can really drive forward the drug development process. And what we have is an end-to-end solution. And why that's important is that we can help drive forward the drug development from beginning to end. So when you're starting and developing natural history studies all the way through to reimbursement. And that's something that we will talk in a bit more detail as we go through the kind of 5 ingredients that we've highlighted. In terms of me, again, there's many faces here that I know. For those of you who don't know me, I'm also a rare disease charity founder with my wife. We set up the advocacy group called the Cure and Action for Tay-Sachs Foundation back in 2011 when my eldest daughter, that beautiful young girl on the right, was diagnosed with Tay-Sachs at 15 months of age. So like many of you on this call, was told the same thing. There's no patient group, there's no research, there's no trials. And in Amelie's case, it's a terminal condition. So we were told that there's nothing we could do. We set the patient group up to build a community, but also drive forward research and look at treatment options. And the last 10 years, I've developed a lot of experience in advocacy, and that's helped me transition to working in the medtech industry. And it's reinforced my passion for making sure that us as advocates, as patients, as parents and carers are involved in drug development. Our role is so important here because we have the lived experience and we can make such a big difference. I think that's important when we start talking about driving forward patient registries and how we can do it for our rare diseases, because we've had that experience and we understand what everyone's going through and the challenges and pitfalls of your experience. So that's my background. So you can, and I'll touch on that as we go through the presentation, sort of my own experiences through that whole process. So in terms of the talk today, the big question that we're always asked at Pulse, when you're planning, developing a rare disease registry, you decide you want to do something and we're contacted by an advocacy group, we're always asked the same question. Where do we start? What do we do? Where do we go? Who do we speak to? When do we actually build it? Why are we building it? And then probably the really important question, how the hell do we do it? And so what we do is we help people understand the impact they can have when they're building out their registry, how they can do it, and why they should be doing it. I think that's the most important bit, why you should be developing a product that can make a difference in your community. It's not just a simple idea of I want to build a registry. You actually have to look at a strategy and 5 actual kind of key ingredients we've identified at Pulse for developing your registry. So these are what we've looked at and we think it's important to consider when you're kind of entering this world of registries is you need to have a strategy. So, why are you doing it? You need a technology partner, which is obviously key. You need an engagement strategy, which is something you need because people need to use it. You need to think about sponsorship, about how you can actually make a sustainable product. And then this is the really important one, is belief that you can actually make this happen. Loads of times over the years, I've spoken to different advocacy groups, different charities, different patients, parents, carers wanting to do something, and they're lacking self-belief. And I think that what we can do and what we do at Pulse is help people take that step. And once you've made that step, literally the world is your oyster. You can do so much when you have this product in place because it can make such a difference to your community. So as we go through the presentation and this workshop, the plan we've put together is we're going to talk about each of these 5. And after we've been through each of them, we're then going to have a 5-minute discussion where Rick is going to pick on people to ask questions about this, about that particular topic. And for me, there's going to join me and answer questions. And we're going to be quite strict on time for those 5 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next topic. So hopefully get ready, make some notes, because we're really excited to share these kind of 5 key pillars we think people should be considering when they're developing their registries. So number 1, the strategy. We all know you need it, but you don't know how it looks. And this is really common. This is something we encounter all the time at Pulse, where we're approached and people say, I want to put this in place in my community. How does it work? How is it going to happen? How is it going to function? So for us, we say, take a step back, think about what a strategy is. Simply, a strategy is a plan to get to a goal. So in the CATS Foundation, our experience of developing a registry, we knew where we wanted to get to. We wanted to have treatments for our community. That's our end goal. And then we work backwards. So if you have a treatment, you need a drug. If you have a drug, you need pharma to develop that drug. If you have pharma need patients. If you have patients need an advocacy group. An advocacy group needs clinicians. Clinicians need to have researchers who diagnose people with that disease. And it's all a chain. And when you can work out where you can position yourself to drive forward this registry, you can make a difference, which is why that whole strategy planning is so important in the beginning, because it can give you a clear idea of where you're going to move to with the registry. So what's our result? We need to clearly define what and why we want it. And this is where we can fall into a bit of a minefield. And this is where a lot of people get lost and stuck. Natural history. You want to build a contact database, drive research, developing endpoints. You want to work on market access. All of these are really key things you need to think about when you're developing your strategy, because it helps you understand the disease, develop that community, develop treatment plans, get treatments to people in the community. And what you need to do is work out exactly what and which of these you want to do with your registry as you're working your strategy. It could be simple. It could be these. You want to build a contact database, so you can create a unified group, which is bringing the different advocacy groups around the world together to identify common symptoms. You can do that. Or it can be more complex. You actually have studies working on, so you need to work on the natural history, developing endpoints, and then market access. That's a different product that you're going to need, but in the basis of a registry, it's essentially the same thing. And that we have to understand is you need to keep calm when you're planning, because it could be incredibly overwhelming if you don't know where you want to go to. And one of the things we really help and work on with people is helping them evolve their project over time. So rather than looking at your registry as it's going to do everything at the very beginning, so it's going to answer all of these questions, actually, what you can do is build a product that's modular. So if you just at the beginning are building a contact database to identify common symptoms, you can do that. And then after 1 year, 2 year, we actually start adding in new modules. You want to be driving forward research. So you want to start looking in ingesting data from other sources, or you want to be building new PROs and new endpoints. You build those modules. And then you want to be looking at market access. Again, what's important here is you have that strategy, but you need to make sure you're working with the right technology solution who can enable you to do that. Because again, a lot of these platforms you'll see, they will be offering part of this process or everything at the beginning. And that's where it becomes overwhelming. You need to make sure that you can utilize a platform that can enable you to do all the parts of your strategy. But that whole kind of don't run before you walk is very important when you're developing a patient registry. You need to make sure that you can walk before you move on to the next stage. Otherwise, like I mentioned before, you can get overwhelmed. It can become too much of a project for you. So when we think about the technology, we need to not think for today, but also for the future of the registry. As we were saying before, what you think now is appropriate, collecting contact details, developing a natural history, is great for now. And then you want to add to it in maybe 2, 3, or 4 years. You need to make sure that that platform itself is designed to do that. What you don't want to be doing, and what unfortunately we've seen, and I've seen many times, is where a advocacy group or even an industry client will have their registry in one product, and then they need to pivot and get all their data out and put it into another platform. That's time consuming. It can be difficult, although from a Pulse side, we can ingest data. That's another conversation. But the other real big issue is you lose the confidence of those people who are giving their data to the registry. And what you can't do is lose the confidence of the community. And again, I've seen that happen so many times. And the huge consequence there is that people lose trust, and then the product itself is not a good representative of people you're supporting. So when we look at kind of technology and data, I think this is a really important slide. And this is something when we speak to anyone at Pulse, be it advocacy, industry, academics, real world data has not lived up to its potential yet. And there are many reasons. And we've identified these 4 pain points. First one, it's low quality. The data itself doesn't adhere to standards. Why is that important? Well, if you want to be collecting data to a level that industry or you can use in clinical studies, it needs to be accepted by the regulators. So you need regulatory ready data. If you're collecting your data and it's not mapped to anything, it can't be used. So all the hard work you've done will either need to be changed or formatted into a regulatory required format, or it will just be dismissed, which is why at the very, very beginning, you need to make sure that your data is collected in the right way. Otherwise, it's very difficult to use. Second one, and we've talked about this, and I'm sure I've spoken to loads of people here about this, data is scattered and siloed. Data sits in industry, they don't want to share it. It sits with an academic who's been saying they're going to publish the data for the last 5 years, but still haven't got around to doing it. Or there's a PhD student that brought in, but then they lost because the funding went. It's not used. So all the work that people have done in giving their information, giving the data to a registry is not used. And if it's not used, it's not impacting your community. And that, to me, has to stop, because you need to give back. When you collect the information, it needs to be shown that it can impact your community. The other kind of pain point we've looked at, and I mentioned before, an end-to-end solution. You don't want to be collecting data in a registry that can only look at one part of the process. You need to be from beginning to end, from building natural history to actually being used in clinical studies. And if you as advocacy group are the owners of that registry, you can get industry in to sponsor it so they can use the information properly for their clinical trials. One, benefits you. You have a platform that's regulatory ready. You look good as an advocacy group to industry, and it saves them so much money and so much time, because they're not going to need to build or invest in something, because you already have it. We already have it with data. And Famida will probably talk about this. And her favorite phrase of the end of 21 for Famida was, data is a new drug, as in people love it, but actually don't know how to use it. And this, again, is where you need to make sure the data is stored in the right format. And the last point really is that the healthcare ecosystem is filled with incomplete data. And we know that. There's so many systems, data is held in different formats, different ways, and you have to do a lot of work to map it. And again, if you don't have a platform that can ingest data from multiple sources, you're stuck, because it means you can't combine these data sets. And again, that means that data has already been collected, can't be used. The other thing that when you enter the registry world is so many names and letters are thrown at you. And when I remember working, when I first started in advocacy, just nodding the whole time to make it look like I knew what people were talking about. And actually Tanya from Gaucher, IGA, who's on the call, we at the LSD Collaborative spent one of our meetings just writing everything down for me and explaining what those 4, 5, 6 letters all meant. And it just helped, because I was just nodding and had no idea what people were talking to me. So GDPR, HIPAA, ECRF, EDC, CDIS, EMR, PROS. We need to learn what they are, because they all are very important when it comes to a registry. And this is where you need to make sure you're then working with a technology partner who can help you understand that and help you understand why HIPAA compliance is important for the US, why GDPR is great for the UK, why you want to do patient-reported outcomes, but actually why you want to do the pros that are specific to your community and not someone else's. So this is stuff that needs to be considered. And then when we look at technology is different. You can look at prospective data, retrospective data. Your platform can do only one, or it can do both. If you only do one, is it bad to be collecting prospective data? It's only bad to be collecting retrospective data. It's only bad to be putting in data from EHRs. What you need to work on is your strategy of what you're building and why you're building it, and then where your technology provider can meet your needs. And this again takes us back to the whole strategy point, understanding what and why you're collecting data. Do you only want to look forward, or do you want to look back, or do you want the complete picture? With our Pulse platform, we can do both, but the merits are maybe you only want to start looking forward, which again, you can do with your PROs, your surveys and endpoints over time. And for us, this is where we see ourselves as a point of difference, in that we have a very truly collaborative approach. We work with the patients and the patient groups. We work with industry, KOLs. So we bring all the stakeholders together with the platform. What it means is that when we're building governance boards and scientific advisory boards, there isn't any one person pulling the strings, dictating where everything's going. It is a collective, because it's really important that every stakeholder here is appropriately represented, because we all bring different views to the table. And actually what the patients and the parent carers view can be very different to even the patients, to the industry and to the KOLs. It doesn't mean that their view is wrong or right. It just means it's different. And we have to come to a collective agreement, which is why working with a partner who has that collaborative approach is really, really important. And then finally on this one with the tech, we mentioned it before, a modular approach, which we have at Pulse and which we think is really important, helps you grow up. You're not just going to be jumping in at the very end of this platform that can do a million different things and actually not utilizing it. It was very expensive. No one can input their data. You've ingested data from somewhere, you have no idea what it means. Actually, you can build something out that meets your specific needs at that time. You can move it forward to do more. So for if you're going to have a clinical trial, or you can strip it back all the way just to the contact database. But you need to have something that can be changeable over a period of time, because what you don't want is either to have something that's too complex to use or doesn't do the right thing at the very beginning. So engagement is vital. We can build the best things in the world, but if no one uses it, really, what is the point? It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. It's an absolute waste of everything. What we need to make sure we do when we build these things is that people use it. So one of the things that we identify very early on when we work with any of our partners really is an engagement plan. What's your strategy going to be? How are you going to get people utilizing the product? How are you going to promote it? We look at the strategy. These are just a few little things. You can look at social media strategies, conferences, videos. Video media has become very popular now. Posters, publications from your KOLs, your clinicians, and print. All of these need to be considered about how you're going to drive people into utilizing the registry. And when we look at that, there's then different subgroups, because who are you actually engaging with? So we did at Pulse an offsite back in the last year. And one of the things for me that said, who are our clients? Who do we speak to? And then who do they speak to utilize the product? So I remember putting the presentation together. The first thing was advocacy, patients, and industry. But it's not. It's so much more complex than that. You've got patients, you've got parents, carers, you've got healthcare professionals, KOLs, clinicians, academics, industry, regulators, advocacy, even the public. This is just a few. The list was actually incredibly long. And what we realized was when we speak to people, and when you, with your registry, speak to people, you have to have a different message, because you need to engage with them in different ways. What you're saying to the patients to utilize the registry is actually different to what you're saying to the parent carers. With the KOLs, the messaging to them about why you're running this product, what you want to do with it. And the clinicians, you need to get their buy-in, because it's important for them that they can signpost their patients to it. Industry, you need to be getting these guys involved early on. We'll touch on that in the sponsorship side, because we need them to help develop our treatments, our drugs, and they do that with patients, and they get patients from advocacy, and advocacy get their patients into a registry. You're going there with a ready-made group of people, so you're making yourself attractive to them. One of the things we suffer from in rare disease is that there's never enough patients. If there's not enough patients, how can you attract industry? Well, this is the way, because you can give them numbers to work from, and you make it attractive for them to develop treatments for you. But that messaging and that engagement has to be done very different depending on who you're speaking to. And it's a naivety that I had very early doors when we had our registry with cats, because we had a single message. And it's not. And you need to change that and make sure you're engaging with people in the most appropriate way. And then one of the other things when we speak to people, what's the key to engagement? What should we be doing to make sure that we get people into the registry, that we promote it, people supporting it? And actually we say, let's not look at what we should be doing first. What shouldn't we be doing? First things first. Don't let it be a black hole. Don't let people give their information and then never to be seen or heard from again. Happens all too often. And really, it should be changed. And I'm hoping things are going to change, that we're asking or expecting those people, the registry or even industry, when they're developing their products, to give information back about what's been collected, because it's educational. We need to know about our disease. We need to know what's happening. It's really, really important. And to me, the other one, which I think is really criminal, is not to publish anything about the data. Unfortunately, you hear the excuse, I didn't have time to write up the paper or the poster. I mean, these things can be done relatively quickly. You can put a poster into a conference just to let people know what's going on. I think that's really, really important. So making people aware what they shouldn't be doing helps them develop on what you should be doing. Share what you found. It's really important for us all to learn, because it's a rare disease. Information is lacking. People don't know disease progression. They maybe don't realize, the demographics where people with this real rare diseases. Let them know. It's really important. And then use a multi-channel approach. And this is where Nina from our team works really hard at making sure we share things. It's posters, it's presentations, it's in publications, social media. So they see that there's actually movement, and that the information they give into the registry is using to raise awareness of their condition. Because, to be honest, this quote I think is really good. Your value will be not what you know, it will be what you share. And for our communities, it's so important that we all know what's going on. You don't, how many times you used to see like a company pop up with a clinical trial on your disease, you had no idea where they're from. That stuff shouldn't happen anymore. It should be that we're all working together collectively and collaboratively all around the world, so we know this stuff's happening. So I think by working through that principle, that you will share information, you can have a much bigger impact and you get much better buy-in from your community, because they'll know why they're taking part in the project. So that is a good segue to the next one, which is sponsorship and sustainability. Comes up all the time. How can I maintain the registry? How can it maintain its potential impact on your community? And there's a really complex subject. There's no simple answer to this one. I think the first thing is to understand the role of a sponsor and what they can do. So when you're setting up, you need someone who can help you do the build. Or if you build it yourself, how they can help you expand, how they can help you recruit into the registry, how they can help you grow your network, how they can develop treatments. A sponsor can, in their position, make your registry sustainable by providing a lot of these resources, but also helping you with the financial side. And that's important for us all as small patient groups, because we don't benefit from huge government grants or from huge fundraising. We're operating on tiny budgets. What we need is something or someone who can help us with a sustainable product, but then also makes our charity sustainable. Because again, I mentioned before, if we didn't do it, who would? And the fact no one else is doing it means you really need to look at sustainability, and the sponsor here can help you. They can really impact and help your registry grow so it can do more, not just on the data collection, but how the data is used. And when we look at how they can help with that sustainable model, you can be looking at with a healthy platform, they can help with trial design, endpoints, managed access programs, precision, everything really. But you need your sponsor on board. And to do that, you need to have your registry set up. So there's a chicken and egg. Once a registry is established and you're showing to them patients, you're showing them natural history data, actually showing them data stored in a regulatory ready format, they will be falling over themselves. And there's going to be some examples I will show you very brief, shortly, how you can do that and how that can happen, and how you can go from having a rare disease with no industry involvement within 10 years to have multiple clinical trials started. And that's not through luck, that's through the patient group identifying how they can drive this forward. That leads nicely to the last point here, Rick, with belief. So need maybe a bit of luck, but you really need a lot of belief to make this happen, because you don't do it, you don't try, it's just never going to happen. Because if it was, someone would have done it before, and the fact they haven't shows you that there's something missing, because you're looking into it. Nothing's impossible, honestly. There's always a solution, there's always a way to make things happen. And I think us as rare disease advocates, we are so driven to make a change in our community that everything's possible. And you see some of the crazy stuff that people get done in a rare disease, you kind of jaw-dropping sometimes, because you think about these communities with 3, 4, 5 patients in one country, and then they're getting therapies approved. You can make it happen, but you just need to believe in yourself. And I wanted to, there's a couple of slides here which I think are important. We've all been told this. You all become the expert of your rare disease. You get the diagnosis as a patient or a parent or a carer. That's what they say to you. You have your doctor who's got 25 plus years experience in your field of medicine, and they're telling you, and you're going to tell me all about your rare disease in 6 months' time. I'll be asking new questions. You're going to be educating me. So we're used to that. We're used to being these people who we're told we're going to be the expert. Let's just change those 2 words though. You'll become the driving force of your rare disease. And this is where you can make the difference to the registry project, because you can actually drive things forward that haven't happened before. So to look at a case study of someone and a group driving it forward, I'll use the Cats Foundation as an example. So again, some of you may have seen, look at these 2 slides before. 2011, Amelie diagnosed with Tay-Sachs disease. No charity in the UK, no charity in Europe. There's one piece of research going on up in Cambridge. We're looking at a gene therapy program. They needed funding, wasn't going anywhere. We set the patient group up to build a community, but also drive forward research, also drive forward therapies and treatments. We knew what we were doing was never going to benefit Amelie. So like many of you here, true advocates, we weren't doing this for our child, we were doing this for our community, because we wanted people affected by Tay-Sachs and so on in the future to have light at the end of the tunnel, that there is the potential opportunity they can get therapy. 2011, nothing. We move forward to 22. This is the landscape now. We have all of these companies across the bottom involved, different types of organizations, small pharma, big pharma, biotech, startups. We have different gene therapy programs going on. We have different natural history studies going on. We have drug repurposing. All these things happen and developed in 10 years. And that wasn't through luck. That was through belief that what we were doing would work and help, and actually working with these guys, not looking at them as a block, or not looking at them as someone who wouldn't help our community, but actively getting involved in their clinical studies. And look at this. We have no right, as a rare disease of 1 in 320,000 people as incidence rate, of having these many companies involved in our area. There's no reason. The reason we got them involved was being collaborative, working, having a registry, having data on our community, making it worth their while so they could see, where are their patients? Where are they based? What's the natural history of the disease? What's different and what's new that we didn't know before? And that's what we did. And really working together. We're involved in all the studies, the clinical trial design, how they're going to do the recruitment strategies, because we have to be, because we are the ones who truly represent our community. And I think this is where we can make a difference, looking at teamwork, because we divide the tasks. You work with an organization on your registry who helps you on that journey, isn't just going to hand you a product. You can make the biggest change. Because that's what we need as rare small patient groups, is a partner who can help us on that journey. And once you do that, you can have huge success. And our kind of success story at CATS is not that actually different to many other groups I know, IGA, NEAM and PIC, NPS Society, because we have these strategies that we put in place. And I think the key to that is having data on your community that can show and be attractive to industry. I think that's what needs to be addressed very early on your kind of experience. Just these are the 5 key ingredients. So obviously we're happy to share the slides of everyone to see and start planning. I think from Pulse perspective, please reach out to us if you want to learn more about the platform, and actually then also how we work and how we can potentially help, because we have a passion in the rare disease community to make a difference, and we're very motivated to do that, and the entire team is motivated to do that, and we'd love to help more of you develop your registries, to get there, to bring in an industry, develop your treatments, because that's what we all want to do.